I want to welcome everyone to another Friday night SIP event. SIP obviously standing for shelter in place, and I will take my glasses off because otherwise it reflects off the monitors. And I have the unbelievable honor and distinct pleasure to taste this evening with Jaclynn Renee von Sant Downing. How did I do?
Downs.
Downs. Downs.
Almost there.
So close. Who thankfully has allowed us to call her Jackie. So,
yeah, a lot of names.
It would be a lot of names, but it's an amazing story, just like all the small limited production producers we introduced to you from the Napa Sonoma regions. They have incredible stories, and Jackie's is no different. And I want to obviously welcome the Zoom attendees. The Facebook attendees are not here yet, but they snooze, they lose. Get a different platform, get a better web broadcasting platform. Facebook is going to grow up someday. There'll be something someday. I think they're still relatively small in a startup. Kidding. So Jackie is with us this evening. We're going to be drinking her 2015 Pinot Noir. So a little bit about, I think there's some folks on that may or may not know about Cellar Angels, but Cellar Angels is a private online wine curator. We focus exclusively on Napa and Sonoma wines. And these are wines that you can't get in your local retail store, your big box store. They just don't make enough of them. And these producers work with us. They make their wines available on the Cellar Angels platform, and a portion of every single transaction goes to charity, and you get to pick the charity. And Jackie crafts really some very, very nice wines, and we're going to get into the story. So the first question I have for you, Jackie, is where are you right now? House, town?
I'm at my house. Yep, I'm in my home right now in Healdsburg, California. This is my living room right here. So just at home, you know, we're sheltering in place, but also wineries are considered essential businesses here in California, because I mean, with agriculture and everything like that, we still have to, you know, bottle and do all of those things. So we're all staying very safe and social distancing, but we're also sheltering in place as well. So I'm here at my house tasting with all of you.
And you moved to the winemaking region in 2007, I believe, from Texas, okay?
Yes.
And
yes,
a Houston native?
Yes, Houston native, born and raised in Houston. And then I moved here in 2007, 3 days after graduating college.
Did you grow up a sports fan?
I did. So I'm one of four with three brothers. I'm actually a triplet, so two boys and myself and a younger brother. So, and I also played junior Olympic volleyball all through school. So I grew up playing sports, but also being a huge sports fan: football, baseball, basketball.
So,
you know,
a Houston Astros fan? Houston Astros
fan, Rockets fan, Texans fan, Oilers back in the day, you know, all the Houston teams.
So you're one of a triplet.
Yes.
I could imagine there was some competitive sports events in your household.
Oh yeah, so much competition. So, I mean, I feel like that has kind of really helped me even now, like in my career, but so much competition. Even being the only girl, we were all so competitive.
And the graduating college, moving to wine country, obviously no one does that. So there had to be some sort of a trigger event for you to say, okay, well, I'm going to take my degree in college, which was what?
I graduated with a major in communication studies and a minor in psychology. So not really wine making or wine related, but I feel like it is still wine related because I still use it in my day to day and with wine. But yeah, I mean, I really had no plans in college to have anything to do with wine. So it's kind of crazy that I landed out here 3 days after graduation.
And you graduated from where?
So I graduated from Texas Tech. So I don't know if there's any Red Raiders, but if anyone sees this, go Red Raiders. So I graduated there in 2007, and I was kind of bummed because I didn't realize they had an amazing viticulture program. But while I was there, I really didn't know much about wine or winemaking. But while I was in my last year of college, my aunt in Houston was in the process of building a wine bar. So every time I would go home for Thanksgiving, Christmas break, any of the holidays, she would have her wine reps come to her house and just taste in her dining room, and she would invite me over. And so we would be tasting some amazing imports like Bordeaux, Burgundies, Spanish imports, such amazing wine. So I kind of went from drinking box white Zinfandel in college, because that's kind of all I knew, to drinking these beautiful wines. So it just kind of really started sparking my interest.
So your grandmother, I'm sorry, your aunt, she was opening up a wine bar, and she was having the distributor reps come to her house to taste?
Well, it was being built. Yeah, it was pretty great. So we would just meet at the house and taste through all the wines. And then once it was ready, then we would taste at the wine bar. But it was just kind of cool to it was more personal too, which was great. But yeah, that was kind of my first experience of really getting to know wine. And she's so educated with wine, and, one of my role models, and she really got me into the industry. So it was kind of cool to start out that way. And so she knew, upon graduation, that I really didn't have a job lined up right after college. So, and I was graduating in August, and harvest starts in August. So the cellar master at Moritzen Winery was on a sales trip visiting her, and they just got to talking, and he asked her, or I guess she asked him, hey, my niece is getting into wine. Do you guys have any openings? And he's like, well, maybe she could just come work a harvest. And the only question they asked me was my boot size. And I wear a really large shoe. I wear like a size 11, 12. So they thought I was going to be this big Amazon woman that came like walking when they picked me up from the airport. But I literally graduated, moved out here with one suitcase 3 days after graduation, and had no idea what I was getting myself into.
So, I mean, Denise and I actually, co-founder of Cellar Angels, who you've met, we owned a wine store. And that was really kind of what got us into Cellar Angels, or one of the launches, if you will. But I'm still in awe that the distributors came to your aunt's house and tasted on portfolios of Burgundies and Bordeaux and Spanish wine. I don't know why we didn't think of that. Why do the taste?
Yeah, totally. Well, she had the most amazing list. So, I mean, yeah, it was a great spot and a great list. So it just kind of, it all worked. It was just,
So was there other than Moritzen, and for those of you that know great wineries in the Sonoma wine region, Moritzen is certainly one of them. But was there anything in that tasting at your aunt's house or in the store, because you're relatively young, and
I was really young, early 20s.
And so, was there anything when you were tasting, whether it was Old World, whether it was New World, whether it was Spanish, South American, certainly California, that you thought, wow, this is, as you mentioned, different than the white Zinfandel box wine I'm drinking?
Right. Well, I mean, all of them are much different than the white Zinfandel, but honestly, if there's one that sticks out, there was this particular wine. It was a Spanish, a wine from Rioja and a couple from Priorat, like these just amazing wines that I just kind of blew my mind. Like, I didn't know that wine could be this way. We didn't really drink wine in my family growing up, growing up in Houston. I know a lot of people drink wine, but not like it is out here, where you kind of grow up with wine at the dinner table, or like it is in like Italy or France or somewhere.
Right.
So I just wasn't very familiar. So I just remember being in my senior year and just being introduced to these wines and these wonderful Burgundies, and just really loving it. But Priorat probably was my favorite region. I mean, they're just so beautiful. I think that was kind of what really was like, okay, wow, like this is something, that I could be interested in. But at the same time, like leaving to come out to California, I had no knowledge of what winemaking or the wine process was going to be. I literally moved out and lived with a winemaker and his wife, and literally lived in their spare room, and just kind of went from there, and realized I was really good at manual labor and dragging hoses. And I honestly, the first week that I started harvest, my very first harvest, I knew that it was going to be what I wanted to do the rest of my life.
And harvest is not for the faint of heart. And I've said that with regards to wine growing or grape growing in particular, but certainly harvest is I mean, you start out at the bottom and you're a glorified hose carrier, buckets, mops, rolling
Tank
barrels,
cleaner,
moving,
everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's I'm sure really putting that communication degree to work.
But I feel like the volleyball and everything too, I feel like I was so used to doing all this hard training, and like '07 was such a hot vintage. Like we were out scrubbing bins from the morning, till, sun was setting, and it's so hot, over 100 degrees. I mean, I feel like you kind of like have to have a mentality to really be able to do that. And like that, I feel like even just growing up with, having competition with my brothers and just, being in sports, I know that might sound silly, but I just feel like it really prepared me for the endurance that you need for harvest. And it's honestly my favorite time of year too.
And it's interesting because Priorat and Rioja in Spain, only two DOCGs, they don't make Pinot Noir. So
no. I know. My style preferences definitely changed with experience.
But why Pinot Noir?
Well, when I was at Moritzen, we had about 30 custom crush clients when I left there. And I was there for about 4.5 years. So out of 30 clients, we, Moritzen's more of a Zen house. But I saw so many clients do varietals, across the board. And so you're getting to know how different people make different varietals, but also in a bunch of different ways. But one of the clients we had was Botch Gloopy, and they were our custom crush client at Moritzen. And so just while I was there, I just really fell in love with the Pinot Noir, with their fruit. And I knew like someday I was like, okay, if I ever do this one day, I'm going to make Pinot Noir from Botch Gloopy vineyards.
Well, and I'm going to hold up the bottle because so far that's the only technology that's worked today. This is what Jackie and I are both drinking, the Jaclynn Renee 2015, 100% from the Botch Gloopy vineyard. And what people don't recognize until I tell them, or until you tell them, until we tell these stories, is the Botch Gloopy family has been growing grapevines for well over 50 years. Mm-hmm. And they've got the Roberts Road vineyard. They've got all sorts of different vineyard blocks. And it is amazing to people that you can go row by row by row and see whose wine it is from mm-hmm. that particular vineyard block. And there's some very famous folks that source from this family. And it's, again, another one of those family growers that just does things the right way. And so the fact that you were able to custom crush for them and then build those relationships, mm-hmm. and Pinot's not an easy grape.
Right. Yeah, they kind of call it the ugly, like, stepchild of grape varietals. It is kind of a hard one. But, and my grandpa asked me to, because my grandpa, he and my dad are partners in this business. And my grandpa is like, what are you thinking? Like, why are you trying to make Pinot? It's going to be the hardest one. And I'm like, well, first of all, I like a challenge. And second of all, I just absolutely love Pinot and Burgundies for sure. So, and this 2015 is amazing. And those of you that have it, let us know in the chat line on Zoom, sorry, Facebook, whether or not you're drinking this or what you are drinking, because the thing we want to do to showcase these small limited producers in this time of uncertainty, and certainly sheltering at home seems to be the new normal, is learn a little bit about where you're from, how you got into this wonderfully rewarding but certainly frustrating business. But also, we want people to drink along with you. So every week on Cellar Angels, we change the Cellar Angels tasting kit. So the sip kit is the next 6 wines in a row. So you can order one of those tonight, get it early next week, and you will have 6 wines all ready for your Friday night date night. And those of you that are drinking Jaclynn's wines, they did that a while ago. And I just got word that there's a couple in Colorado that are drinking it and loving it. So they're on with us at Zoom. Yay. Hi, in Colorado.
Those are the Mannings. Hi, Mom. You said that's your mom? That's talented. Tell your mom, or actually that's you really. That's the only font I can read from this distance. So.
Oh, yeah, I put it on caps, so you can read that one.
So because you like a challenge, you go after Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And Pinot Noir, cool climate grape. And so what people, I don't know if they know how large the Russian River is, north to south, east to west. It's a big AVA. And you having kind of worked at a custom crush for 4 years, how did you decide that where you want to get your fruit? Kind of go on that little journey with me.
Yeah, so I was at Morrison for 4.5 years, and then I moved over to Wattle Creek in Alexander Valley. So a different climate, again, different varietals, more cab driven straw, other things like that. And I started my label while I was at Wattle Creek, and that was my 6th harvest. That was 6 years into my career.
Time out. 2 questions. Well, 1 comment, 1 question. Nick Schramm is telling us the wine is delicious.
Thank you.
And the Greasies.
Awesome.
But here's, because you're working out there and not everybody decides that they want to own their own or start a label. It's kind of like working at a high-end restaurant. You may not decide that you want to open up a restaurant because it's a lot of work. So why did you decide, or what caused you to just go, I think I want to start my own label? Because it's insane from a regulatory standpoint, headache. And
I know. It's kind of crazy, and people still tell me I'm crazy, but I really think it was because I've worked at 3 full-time wineries in my almost 13-year career. Every single one of them has had Custom Crush. I think it really pushed me after being in so much Custom Crush and seeing the way that people were making their wine, right or wrong. It's a good learning lesson, and I feel like I just felt the need or the call or pull to do my own thing, like to have my own, like I saw the way people were making them and kind of developed the style that I knew that I loved or wanted to make. So while I was at Wattle Creek, our winemaker there at the time, Matt Michael, was like, okay, if you don't start it now, you're never going to do it. So he kind of just pushed me to start it. And I kind of called up my dad and my grandpa, and I was like, okay, I know what I want to do. Let's just make this happen. And we just did it. But I knew, from the beginning, I just kind of, from experience, like my young self in my early 20s, I did love more of those darker reds, those kind of Spanish darker reds. And then even the Zins being at Morrison kind of is what I started. But then once tasting clients' wines and then just kind of developing my palate more, because it really does take practice and tasting and things like that, I was like, okay, for sure. Like I fell in love with Burgundy and Burgundian wines. And like, okay, I want to do Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And we only had the funds to do one wine first. So we did Pinot Noir in 2013 was the first vintage. And then did some rosé from Saunier from that. And then in 2017, we finally started doing Chardonnay from San Giacomo Vineyards in Petaluma Gap.
Yeah.
They're such an amazing family. But I just think from practice, taking classes, tasting wines, really just started developing my palate and perfecting what I wanted to do and where I wanted to make my wines and what vineyards I wanted to use.
Well, it's interesting. We could get a little geeky and do a tasting. I'm getting a lot of magic marker. I'm sorry.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
It's because Denise is writing notes to me on a magic marker. So.
I was like, I don't know if that's a good descriptor.
No, but when she's not writing notes and the magic marker is capped. See, this is what I love about good Pinot Noir from a good producer, because now this is going to probably offend a lot of people, but in my opinion, too many Pinot Noirs in Sonoma, and most people don't actually make Pinot Noir in Napa unless they're doing it down in Carneros. There's too much candied. There's too much sweetness. And yours has, to your point and to kind of your stylistic desire, has some of that Burgundian-esque to it.
Right.
There's a common phrase, bake shop spices. So on the nose, it's beautiful. It has that a soft cinnamon, cardamom, almost. And then you obviously have the fruits. But
yeah.
When the magic marker's not out, this is delightful.
So I think a lot of that comes from the clones too. So with Pinot Noir, there's so many different clones that you can use. And I know, again, like to get a little geeky, I kind of experimented too with Botchglupi because yeah, I knew I wanted to use their fruit, but I didn't know exactly, being new for myself making wine from them, which clones I wanted to use. And they have a variety of clones of Pinot Noir in their vineyards. So I kind of started in 2013, my first vintage. I did one clone. I just did Winty clone. It was a really pretty ripe year, but and then tasting that, we did get gold medal right away from the Chronicles. So I'm like, okay, that's awesome for first vintage, but it just needed a little more backbone. So it was like, okay, next year, let's try 667. So we did try that in 2014 and I liked it, but it just wasn't what I was looking for. And so 15 was the first vintage that we did, 50% Winty, because I absolutely love the Winty. That's where you get the tea leaf and all kind of those earthy Burgundian flavors that I absolutely love. And then I did Pommard, so 50% Pommard clone. You're getting a little bit more fruit and depth. So from 15 on to current, we've done about 50% Winty, 50% Pommard, and later in early, I guess more current years, a little bit more Winty because I do like more of that Burgundian. So I like a little bit more of the earthy, but we've stuck with Winty and Pommard. That seems to be like the perfect match. And I think it's worked because 15 was the first year we got a 91 from Robert Parker too. So it's like, I think that those clones just really blended really well. So this wine is that you're drinking now, we got really great scores, but I think it just kind of was finally like the coming together and really works really well. So.
Well, I want to salute this offer in 2015. And also we were going to have a cameo appearance by your family. Because
yes, I know they had to go.
Most people.
Maddie made me a sign. I don't know if y'all could see that. I love Mom. She was gonna hold it up, but they had to run.
Denise made me a sign. These are all the things I'm not supposed to forget.
You're doing great.
But no, so let's cheers the family because they were gonna make a cameo and had to run out. And I know the Greasies always like to just social drink. So this is our social drinking. Cheersing to you.
Cheers to everyone that's watching.
And I mean, I'm going to geek out a little bit further on clones, but at a very low level.
Okay.
Because there's just, there are so many Pinot Noir clones, as there are Cabernet, Merlot, and those sorts of things. But is it similar to seeds? So if you go to a store or a nursery and you're buying seeds, you can literally buy 10 different types of tomato seeds or 15 different types. And people always ask me, I hear 777, I hear Pommard, I hear Dijon, tell me a little bit about that. So is that a fair analogy on that each one of those seeds or each one of those clones is going to impart a different type of profile and, like you said, backbone?
It does. It really does. I mean, it's just like any type of varietal of tomato, any type of varietal of apple, like any type of varietal of any fruit or vegetable. It really does impart different nuances, different aromatics. I mean, they grow differently in different climates or different microclimates. So it really, it does give, like, stylistically different aromatics and structure and texture and different part or color, even color extraction. I mean, so there's so many things that it imparts. So I feel like kind of having fun with experimenting those in the beginning, because I've talked to a lot of people that have started brands recently, and I'm like, oh, when I started, I tried a few different clones and this and that. And they're like, that sounds terrifying. Like, we just want to try one thing and then keep it consistent. I'm like, well, how? That's not fun. Like, try different things until you make it right. And every year is a new vintage, so you're dealing with new weather patterns, everything's new. So it's kind of cool to get to experiment with new things. If you do it the same every year, of course we want consistency, but if you do everything the same every year, I feel like that's kind of boring. So I feel like kind of trying new things, and that's the way you learn too. That's how I learned what I wanted to do. Try different clones, try different, varietals and things like that.
So these two, Pommard and Winty, two very, very famous clones, and 50-50, and it seems to be what you're after. How much of the clone expression is impacted by Mother Nature?
That's a good question.
I always ask good questions.
Yeah, I think that for Pinot Noir, because it is so delicate, I think you just have to be really careful on when you're making the picking decision. For example, 2013 was my first vintage making the Winty clone. And again, my first vintage, I know I've dealt with their fruit before, but not personally. It's definitely different when you're doing it for yourself. It got a little hot that year, and I probably waited a little long to pick. And because of that, the 13 had a little more riper characteristics than I wanted. The kind of riper touch of raisiny kind of masked those tea leaf and earthy notes that I love. So it
Right.
really kind of matters on the picking decision, and the weather and the heat spikes and things like that. So really having to be out there, tracking the vineyard, walking the vineyard. I think that keeping it in the zone where it keeps those aromatics or structure that you want, I feel like you kind of have to be on top of all of that, because you kind of, yeah, I mean, it really does make a difference.
So do you, and I think it's, this is to me why this is such a very, very hard vocation, or difficult vocation, because you, based upon your track record and working at custom crush facilities, you got to taste some great wines. And so when you look at the ingredients of those great wines, and you've decided upon Pommard and Winty, and then you know what they can express, and so you know that ethereal magic that happens when everything comes together, right? And so it has to be extremely infuriating and difficult that you know what you're after, but then if Mother Nature doesn't cooperate, or there's late bud break, and then there's not enough pollination, and then there's not, and you're like, oh no. Does that pretty much sum it all up?
I don't know. I feel like, again, you had this question that you kind of posed to me about what would I tell my younger self? And I feel like in my younger years, in my earlier vintages, those things would have caused me really bad, stress, or it would have really worried me. Like, oh my gosh, like we're having a heat spike, or oh my gosh, there's rain coming. And yeah, of course we all stress about that. But I feel like the more experience you get, it's kind of like, okay, like this is my job to take it, make the best decisions I can in the vineyard, and then bring it in at the best time, and then make the best product out of it, regardless of what the weather is going to be like, what, the rain, the heat spikes, all these things. It might not be like the perfect timing, but I feel like then the fun begins. Like then you get to like perfect it and make it the best it can be from the circumstances that it started from. So, I mean, yeah, it's stressful, trust me, my husband and everyone around me during this, I'm the most stressed when the grapes are still on the vine. And I see my brothers on here, my mom, my aunt, I think, is on here now. I really am kind of a little, I wouldn't say a mess. I would just say it is stressful, and we do kind of amp up, and we're kind of,
Not a mess.
It's not a mess. It's just like
just mildly cluttered.
Just mildly cluttered, like this is the decision, but once you make it, it's like kind of relief, and then you kind of just take it from there and just make it the best that you can. So I feel like in my later years, like more experience, it's just kind of like it's just wine, like we talked about, and you just kind of get to the fun begins. I feel like
it's very stoicism type of philosophy that you're sharing, where you can't do anything about it. The only thing you can control is the reaction to it. So just go with the flow, which is good. And speaking of your younger self, what do your children think of mommy's job?
They love it. I mean, you'll probably, if anyone follows our social media, you'll see my daughter trying to do punch downs, or, of course on non-fermenting fruit, but there's a really sweet photo of myself doing a punch down standing on a macro bin, and she's holding onto my leg for dear life. And if you could hear her, "Don't fall in, Mom, don't fall in." I mean, they love being in the vineyard right now with everything starting to turn green and grow. They notice that right away, and their favorite place to be is in the vineyard and at the winery. So they love it, and it's kind of a magical place to grow up in, and they love being a part of it. So it's pretty great.
And I'm curious, and I get this question a lot, and I'm sure you get it more, is you got out there in 07 through 13 were kind of fun, because there were some great vintages in that little time frame. And then all of a sudden you have some things in 17. Well, then you have an earthquake. Then you have the fires. So I get questions all the time. How has the fires impacted the grapes and impacted the vines? So what are you seeing?
Yeah.
What are you learning?
Yeah, I think more than just the vines, because I mean the vines are pretty protected, so the vines really haven't had much damage. I mean they're on irrigation and things like that, most of them, so we haven't had a lot of, I guess, loss as far as vines and vineyards and things like that. I mean I know some people had damage, smoke damage and stuff at the later parts of harvest, but I think more of the misconception of, you know, that I guess no one wanted to come back to wine country after the fires thinking like all of Sonoma County burned down. You know, these misconceptions that I was hearing all over from people watching the news thinking, you know, oh, we're not going to go. So I think the hardest part for us being in Sonoma County is like people aren't, or before obviously coronavirus, people were still not coming back. And I think that people should know, like, you know, everything's okay and everything's green and beautiful. We had a lot of rain. Everything's green. Everything's regrowing. And you know, you come back and you know, it's just part of Mother Nature and we're all doing well. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. And my family's in Texas, so they're all watching the news too. And they're like, oh my gosh, is everything burned down? And it did look like that, but you know, we're okay and we're all, you know, trying to move past it. So,
And I think and you live there, I will, ultimately, but I think there's two misconceptions. You're right. The news media portrayed the fires as it was cataclysmic, end of the world. Napa and Sonoma
right.
wiped off the map.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It was not good. It was very terrifying, but I mean, it wasn't maybe as, I don't know. Well, it was bad, but.
And the two different worlds are, most people don't recognize that a grapevine is about 97% water. And they actually act as an unbelievable natural fire break, because the fire comes down the hillside, hits a vineyard, stops. There's really nothing to burn there.
It's so true.
The biggest challenge from what we've seen and heard and learned is that the physical structures to the town's buildings, homes, townships, and those sorts of things, was that they all burnt to the ground. And so from a labor standpoint, construction companies and building companies were paying more for manual labor than vineyards could pay. So people were getting paid more to swing a hammer to rebuild Santa Rosa or a great portion of it. So that actually hurt from a labor standpoint, but from a grape growing standpoint, there was very minimal damage.
Right. Yeah, that's very true.
And I have someone, Mr. Alexander, who is having this wine this evening with a fajita, and it is going perfect.
Oh, awesome. I love fajitas, and my Texas family is watching, so fajitas, I think that sounds great.
How do you spell fajita?
F-A-J-I-T-A.
I just wanted to put that on. No, so Pinot Noir, Rosé, Chardonnay in beautiful Healdsburg, Russian River Valley. What's on there? Let's actually back up. You don't make a lot of this as typical. It's not like you're making 5,000 cases.
No, we're only making about 250 cases of the Pinot, and then the Chardonnay from Petaluma Gap, we do only about 120 cases, and Rosé, we started out doing only 25 cases, and now we're up to 115. So we're only making about 500 cases, which is tiny. Yes, total.
Rosé. So you've been holding on to us. Okay, we'll take that up later.
Oh yeah, there I have it right here. Oh, let me grab it. My husband staged these back here. So Rosé. So I was doing 100% Pinot Noir Saunier from Botchgalupi Vineyards, but when I needed to increase production, doing Saunier out of really expensive fruit is expensive. So I started getting some Zinfandel from Comstock. So I work full-time at Comstock Winery in Dry Creek, and they have some amazing Zin. So we picked the Zin just like we would a champagne. So really, really early and low bricks, and brought it in and did it like Vin Crease style, straight to press. So really light color. So you can see like how like the color is, or it kind of looks a little darker, but really light color, more of a Provence style rosé. So higher in acid, but still really beautiful, like strawberries and cream and everything from the Pinot Noir. So that's
very
kind of
nice
the style that I.
Do you have a a desert island wine. Do you have a wine that if you were to be stranded on a desert island and it couldn't be one of your own, or it could be one of your own, and you said, okay, this is.
No, it would have to be champagne. It's champagne. Bubbles all the way. Yeah.
Always bubbles.
Always bubbles. Yeah. It would have to be bubbles.
And I applaud that. So I will toast that right there.
Cheers again.
It's one of the things that when we did own the store, we tried to encourage with the customer that bubbles are a way of life in the old world. Every single day they have bubbles. In the United States, unfortunately, we seem to only have them around New Year's, holidays, weddings, promotions, but we need to drink more bubbles. So it's fascinating that you say, oh, hands down, bubbles.
Oh yeah. I mean, anytime, there's not a lot of drinking that goes on here as much anymore with two little ones around, but if there's wine around besides mine and Comstock usually, it's usually bubbles. So that's kind of my number one choice for sure. And I do plan to make a sparkling.
I was just going to say, you've got Chardonnay and Pinot.
Yes, I'm definitely going to make a sparkling one day. It's definitely one of my goals. It's just very expensive to make a sparkling, but when we can do it, we're definitely going to. And there's another plan to make a Bordeaux blend, which we're going to probably do bottle next year. So that's going to be exciting too.
Oh, that is awesome. So what are you going to use for that?
So I'm not going to tell all the details yet, but I have some really great vineyards that I'm going to use to make a Merlot, which is like my all-time favorite Merlot, Merlot and Cab blend. I had some family that lived in Bordeaux, and so we've always wanted to do one, but just kind of try to fight the right timing. And I absolutely love Bordeaux blends as well. So we're going to do that and release it probably next year.
So we talked a little bit about your childhood, growing up with the very competitive siblings, and you are where you are because of that. If you could tell your 15-year-old self or 18-year-old self something today, now that you have this wisdom and this stoic philosophy, which I love, what would you tell your 15-year-old self?
I don't know. I think just don't stress so much. Just live in the moment, take it day by day. I just feel like, again, I'm a perfectionist, and that's kind of what I still, use that in my wine. I'm a perfectionist with the wine too. I think that's, what makes it what it is, which I think is a good lesson for sure. But I just think that I would just, like we were talking about yesterday, it's just wine. It's not the end of the world. We can just kind of roll with the punches. And I think I would definitely tell my younger self that, just go with the flow.
Just relax a little bit.
Just relax a little bit, just a little.
Yeah. Perfectionist is I think a very, very cute way of saying OCD.
Maybe, that's true.
I happen to live with a perfectionist, so I think you're in safe company there. And then, what's on the horizon? Where do you see yourself? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do?
Yeah, well, I know. I asked myself that too. I know what I want to do. I'm doing what I want to do.
Good.
Winemaking I don't think I can imagine doing anything else. Harvest, even though it's grueling hours, the harvest that we work, even with having a family and 2 kids, I work 7 days a week, minimum 12-hour to 17-hour days. I'm never happier. I know it's crazy to say, even when I had a toddler and not sleeping, and I was sleeping like 3 hours a night with harvest 7 days a week. It's hard, but it's my favorite time of year. I know this is what I want to do. And but I know that in the future, we're going to build on this brand and, do more things with that. It's just kind of, there are things in the works, but I can't share all of them. But I know, building the brand is, building the brand. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, is your aunt still alive that had the wine shop?
She's on here right now.
Get out of here.
You can ask her any questions. She should be on. Aunt Robin, if you're here, say hello. I think she's on here. My mom and my brother.
This is a cool grandmother.
Oh, that was my mom that said that. Yeah, my great grandma used to have a box of Tide and the floorboard of her car with champagne in it. So my champagne, there's my aunt right there. So my champagne will definitely be named after my great grandma.
That's where I was going with this. That's
yes,
exactly
it will.
where I was going.
My champagne will definitely be named after my great grandma.
Now, unless her name is Gertrude, what will it be named?
I can't share all those things.
And for anybody whose name is Gertrude.
But her name was Madeline, who is also my daughter's name is named after her, Madeline, and we call her Gigi. She was amazing.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So a sparkling's in your future.
It is, for sure.
Growing the label. You're doing what you love. Biggest reward on what you're doing? Most fun that what you're doing? What is it?
I think just the start to finish, honestly, just being able to walk the vineyards, make picking decisions, like wake up in the morning and literally watch the sunrise in the vineyards and being able to make these decisions and then seeing it through in the winery to bottle. I mean, that is very rewarding, getting to make every single decision. But now I feel like being a mom and just getting to share that with my kids and my husband and just seeing their faces light up and them tasting the fruit and, kind of the same exact process, but even added, with the family and everything. It really is so rewarding. And just honestly, again, getting to make the decision vineyard to bottle is very, it's pretty amazing.
That is a lot of power and a lot of authority. And it's also a lot of responsibility because the buck stops with you.
It is. Like I said, before the picking decision, it's a little crazy and scary, but it is so rewarding. It really is.
And if we have a lot of folks around the country that ask us where they should go visit and who they should go taste with when they go to wine country, how do they come out to the Valley and taste you?
Yes, so that's kind of, something we are working on. So again, I work full-time at Comstock Winery, and I make my wine there too, so I custom crush my brand there. So the best way to reach us is, just emailing me at jackie@jaclynrenewines.com, but just setting up something with me personally, but I'm also in the works setting up a new tasting experience with 2 other women owned brands who are so amazing, and we're going to have a new place to taste, but that'll come out soon, which is super exciting. But just emailing me and anytime, we just do private tastings since we're so small, so just emailing us is probably the best way to get a hold of me to set up appointments.
And what question would you like to ask a wine consumer?
That's a very good question. I don't know. How can we get our wines to you easier? I don't know, because there's other people from other places like Colorado and that are watching now. I don't know. What do you like? What's your favorite wine? I don't know.
It's funny because obviously at Cellar Angels now in our 10th year, we've talked to hundreds of winemakers and to a person almost, especially the very, very small ones that are doing it for the romance, for the passion. Yes, they would love to have the economics work and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, they basically say, you know what? Making wine is very, very easy. Selling wine is not so easy.
I know, that's the hard part.
That's the hard part. But
definitely during the time of coronavirus, thinking of new ways and thinking outside of the box, it's definitely more challenging right now. So,
well, and it's great for us because I mean anybody can go to Cellar Angels right now and grab your wine. So those folks that bought it in the tasting kit that didn't know anything about Jackie, that wanted to explore and get social on a Friday night, which the Cellar Angels sip events are rapidly becoming the new date night. So I'm just going to put that out there, and the Wall Street Journal can call us for an interview. We'll be happy to oblige. But it is, I can only imagine the fulfillment, especially with your family too, that they have watching you pursue a dream and making it happen. And even your parents, your immediate family, the fact that you grew up cheering for the Astros, I'm not going to count that against you. as a lifelong Cub fan. We'll talk later.
Oh man.
But I want to salute you for basically 3 days after graduation from college saying, you know what, I'm going to go to California and I'm going to work in the wine industry, because that takes a heck of a lot of courage. And those are the sorts of things that make great stories. And you, young lady, are a great story. So thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Anything else you want to tell us or that we should know before we let you go back to your family and enjoy a Friday evening in paradise?
Well, I guess just something fun to know, like even though we're all going through like coronavirus, I hope everybody's families and everybody's staying safe and healthy. At the winery, we're still kind of ticking, and we're actually just pumped out my Pinot Noir, my 2018 vintage today, and we're going to be bottling it next week. And my Chardonnay, we're going to be pumping out and bottling in June. But I mean, we're still kind of going here, but just keep us in mind. And again, like Martin said, you know, we're a small brand and we need your support to keep going. So check out our website, sign up for our email list, check us out on Facebook and Instagram. But I just think, again, all the support counts. And how can we support you too? If you have a small business, let us know. That would be awesome. But I just really appreciate everybody, you know, taking time out of their Friday night and enjoying happy hour with us. And thank you so much.
Before I let you go, do you have a magic can't miss food pairing with your Pinot?
Oh my gosh, my favorite in the whole entire world is pork belly and Pinot.
Shocking.
And if you can't make pork belly, then just like a pork loin and Pinot. It's just the perfect pairing.
Shocking. The gal from Houston likes pork belly.
I know, or some ribs, or some barbecue. Yeah.
That's awesome. No, well, thank you for spending some of your time and sharing a little bit of wine with us. And everyone else, I want to echo Jackie's sentiments. Stay safe. We're all in this together. Hopefully this is going to be over relatively soon. I'm not opposed to the new normal of drinking wine with everybody socially, electronically 6 feet away or more. But do yourselves a favor. Definitely check out Jackie's wine and the video on Cellar Angels, because her family and what they do and how they do it is the stuff of magic. And that's what's in the bottle. And that's what's in your glass. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great weekend. Jackie, you are a rock star. Cheers. Be good.
Thank you.